Bitcoin making the move on the 6-hour chart. It's quite a move to the upside right now, breaking a very key trend line we were just talking about in yesterday afternoon's video and last night's video. Hit the like on the way in, everybody. I appreciate you cruising through on this live stream event. It's another live stream as Bitcoin makes moves to the upside. So I'm going to break down all the Bitcoin charts, what's happening right now, where to look for resistance, where to look for some targets. It's such a crazy move to me, and this is why I'm really enjoying doing these live streams once again, because markets are kind of picking up. Bitcoin narrative kind of gaining some momentum here. So I just tweeted this a little bit ago. I said, breaking, the banking system is falling apart while crypto market cap reclaims $1 trillion. If you're seeing that bigger picture that's playing out on the macro, and this isn't like a short-term thing. I've been doing YouTube videos for over 5 years, tracking this narrative shift, right? Of traditional finance and the whole thing about how Bitcoin fixes this, right? You're starting to see it slowly form. The storyline is forming. And if you know, you know. And right now, it's things like what is happening with SVB that's really playing into that narrative and really starting to wake people up to realize. So here's the headlines of the day, and then we're going to dive into the charts. So make sure to subscribe, hit that like button as we get started. So stablecoin USDC nearly regains dollar peg after Circle says $3.3 billion held with SVB will be available. So we went, in a matter of just a couple days, a few days over the weekend, we went from like mass fear because USDC was depegging. It wasn't great to see that, but it also wasn't the first time that has happened in over the years. But we went from mass fear to all of a sudden, hey, it got back to dollar peg. SVB depositors, they're going to be bailed out. And the sentiment shift happened so fast, and it's really playing into all markets. Major cryptocurrencies stabilize after US intervenes on SVB. Now we start getting into the bigger play here, especially everybody, March 14th. It's tomorrow. It is that CPI data that we've been just anticipating. And this is what's happening now. This is extremely unexpected for this week. We were just looking forward to March 14th CPI data, right? And this is kind of where my prediction came from last week. I said, next week will be a very green week for crypto. That's my prediction. Obviously, I still could be wrong. I really could be wrong. This entire move to the upside could fail. We could just crash, right? But my reason for saying this, before all of this stuff happened with USDC, was historically oversold data and CPI data on Tuesday is why I think this. We're in this environment on Bitcoin where when we start zooming out, here's the weekly chart, we're on this, we're kind of coming out of this oversold environment. You go to the monthly chart, we're in this bottoming out environment on the RSI, the slower moving momentum oscillator. So bottoming out of the bear market, previous to previous bear markets or similar to previous bear markets, we're in that oversold territory coming out of it. It's the pivot from bear to bull. On top of CPI data coming out tomorrow, I really think that this week could be a really good week. Now, what's playing into this is something I didn't anticipate, which is this. The Fed needs to stop raising rates now, former FDIC chair says after Silicon Valley Bank failure. So now we're starting to get this crazy narrative in terms of Bitcoin and crypto charts playing into interest rates and what's going to happen there, playing into now this CPI data tomorrow. And this is the whole foundation to it. If this comes in better than expected, it could be an extremely bullish thing for all markets. So this is what's happening with stock market right now. You can see it's a green daily candle. It's indecisive still early on. You can just see the candle, very indecisive, but we're going to track this throughout the day. And US dollar currency index, you can see falling right now. This is a big deal for risk on assets like Bitcoin. So let's talk about Bitcoin now. If you're in the live stream, please hit that like button for me as we get started. It helps get some momentum. This is what's going on the 6-hour chart. So we're going to slowly zoom into this chart, but we're first going to start zoomed out to lay some, I think, even more important context than what's even going on in the short term. So monthly chart, we just looked at the RSI, the bottoming out, Bitcoin coming out of oversold. You can look at the quicker moving momentum oscillator. Bitcoin right now kind of just exiting this oversold environment. This is a stock RSI. It's quicker moving, but just notice, I mean, this is Bitcoin falling into oversold in November into December. That's kind of a big deal for bottoming out of bear markets. We go to the last bear market. Check it out. This is what the stock RSI looked like on the monthly momentum oscillator. Here's falling into the bear market low, and here's exiting the bear market, right? And then the same thing in the previous bear market, or falling into bear market, exiting. So we're getting such a similar look on the charts right now. And the fact is, this is all happening amidst really something that Bitcoin has never survived through, right? So not only is all of the momentum oscillators kind of showing a very similar vibe, but Bitcoin actually holding up stronger in this bear market than previous bear markets, right? Down ultimately around 77%. Previous bear markets down over 80%. So this is incredible in terms of Bitcoin and crypto as we kind of get through this bear market. So big thing to note as we exit this monthly chart real quick is just the 50-month moving average. It's an area for previous months. You can see Bitcoin contending with, and we've noted before, this is not an area Bitcoin has ever had to deal with coming out of a bear market. So it's a really big macro indicator, I would say. When we see Bitcoin start closing monthly candles above this area, the 50-month moving average, that's a really big deal. And so that's what I'm going to continue tracking. And you can see this monthly candle back in January, resistance. It's a green candle. Back here in February, very indecisive monthly candle, still not breaking or closing above. It shortly broke above, but didn't close above. And then right now, we are right there, right below, and we're looking at $24,000 is the 50-month moving average. How is this month going to close? 18 days still left of this month. We're going to continue tracking it. Also, before we leave this monthly chart, just look at this wick on the monthly, right to that white trend line. What is the white trend line? It's just this trend line that extends all the way to the bull market high, and Bitcoin kind of breaking out of that trend line and just starting to see support. Will it hold or will we trickle down? It's in play. We have to anticipate that. Bitcoin's moving nicely in the shorter term. It doesn't mean we're completely out of the volatile woods of a crypto bear market or the end of a bear market. So now let's pivot to the weekly chart. So much room for momentum to the upside. Just want to note the RSI, slower moving momentum oscillator, it's kind of not even above this yellow line, which we've tracked as kind of this area where Bitcoin tends to break above in these kind of parabolic events. Bitcoin's still not even above that area. So there's a ton of room to the upside as Bitcoin hovers right in between the RSI, this momentum oscillator. A lot of room for upside, continued move for Bitcoin, and that's what starts playing into the shorter term charts. Before we leave the weekly and go to the daily chart, this is what we're looking at. Right now in the weekly, 50-week moving average in blue, 200-week moving average in red. That area, still a big macro resistance area. We want to see Bitcoin get back above. Nice to see the support at the 20-week moving average down here. But right now, this range of resistance, we're looking at right around 23,200, just below where Bitcoin is right now, up to the 200-day moving average or week moving average, 25,300. So you can see Bitcoin entering this range of macro resistance right now. A lot of people talking about the 50-week moving average crossing below the 200-week moving average as this incredibly bearish event. We take note of it. We realize it's there. But for me, this is a bullish event. This, for me, as I said time and time again, signals the end of something incredibly painful. This is the after effects, that crossing right there. It's the after effects of a brutal bear market. But right now, we're seeing the convergence of all of these moving averages. And you see even the 20-day or 20-week moving average being pulled into these two moving averages. During this time of convergence, it will not be unlikely to see Bitcoin pump to the upside, right? Fall to the downside, pump to the upside, even fall to the downside again. I want to say, as we're talking about this Bitcoin, obviously I put like skyrocketing in the description or whatever. Even though we're talking about this move and it's enjoyable right now, this day, this week, there is a lot of room to the downside still. This is going to be a volatile journey, right? Probably 2023, going to be a very volatile journey. Now, before we talk about room to the downside or even just a fake breakout, right? This weekly candle just falling, failing. Maybe next week's red. Before we start talking about what support looks like to the downside, let's start breaking down the move that's happening right now to the upside. First things first, on the 6-hour chart, it gives us a really good idea of what has happened. And I don't want to repeat myself too much. We've tracked the structure here. We fell to the target and we pulled back to this trend line. Reason I'm bringing it up is because just in last night's live stream, as I was live streaming, we were hitting that resistance. If we zoom in on that resistance, look at the 6-hour chart. It proved to be resistance, right? So Bitcoin consolidated sideways, not surprisingly, as we hit that target of resistance, and then we're breaking to the upside right now. So as we're breaking to the upside on the 6-hour, just remember what's happening on that macro weekly chart that we just looked at. Remember, we're entering this zone of weekly resistance, the 200 up here, right down to the 50-week moving average. So Bitcoin's in that zone now. Now, we're going to start breaking down on the daily chart why that's so important for the structure that Bitcoin is forming. And if we go back to the 6-hour chart, just take note, this is where we are on the 6-hour, breaking above that trend line, but this is what it looks like on the daily chart now. So if we zoom out just a little bit on the daily chart, we have all that weekly context. We have the 6-hour context. This is kind of the nice midterm picture, I think, that illustrates what's going on with Bitcoin right now, and that is formation, right? So we have now this new trend that Bitcoin has been in basically since November, the swing low, so far the bear market low, and we have this target to the upside, not only on that weekly chart that we just looked at, the resistance range that we were just looking at, right? But check this out. It's an upper trend line. It's a higher high area for Bitcoin. We've already noted there's a lot of room on the weekly chart for momentum to the upside. That could be what fills this gap here if there's going to be continuation for Bitcoin on this chart. Right now to that upper trend line, we're looking at 10% move. If we open up the RSI on the daily, there is room for this RSI, the slower moving momentum oscillator, to get the 10% move. Right now, we're getting this break above this trend line on the momentum oscillator. There's room to the upside, but just note, if we get the 10% move, and this is where I would start using some caution, we get the 10% move, right? Just say that happens, and say it's off of something like bullish CPI data tomorrow, right? Maybe a move like that doesn't even happen today. Maybe it happens tomorrow or Wednesday or something. I would start being cautious, not only because the upper trend line resistance, but if we open up the daily oscillator at that point, what's happening? Are we entering overbought, right? And if we're entering overbought, what does resistance look like at that time as the upper trend line is being tested? So right now we're sitting here anticipating a potential bullish move off the back of CPI data tomorrow, if it's coming in better than expected. And if it's coming in better than expected off of things like this. On Monday morning, odds of no hike at next week's Fed meeting surged past 50% from 0% weeks ago. The odds of the Fed not raising rates weeks ago was 0%. Now it's above 50%. There's so much talk of the printer being turned back on. These things that you can't say are good for this long-term outlook of the economy of the United States, right? It's not good for these things, but when it comes to risk on and things like crypto, it could be good for crypto. And so that's why there's a bullish vibe. So surged past 50% from 0% weeks ago before settling back to 15%. Odds of a half-point hike, which surged above 80% after Powell's Senate testimony last Tuesday, are now 0. So that's kind of bullish for markets, and they're reacting to that appropriately. If we real quick look at Trueflation in terms of this CPI data, look, it looks like it just ticked down again, 4.56%. Keep mentioning this as a leading indicator for what we actually see with real CPI data that's released, right? And the real CPI data might be the on-chain data that we're getting from Trueflation. So this continues to tick down. So there could be some bullish numbers tomorrow. If that happens, this is what could play into the bullish move for Bitcoin to the upside, another 10% to the upper trend line. So if you think we're going to get a continued bullish move into CPI data tomorrow, let me know in the chats. I'm looking over at the chats once in a while. Let me know in the chats. If you're feeling macro bullish, hit the like button right now for me. It means a lot. And let's continue and let's start talking about some targets to the downside now. So there's our target to the upside, continuation. The story, the narrative for continuation is here. It's potentially true. But downside is also obviously very possible. So what does that look like? Well, first things first, for me, when we're looking at Bitcoin entering this range of resistance on the weekly, this is the perfect setup for resistance, right? It could be swing high back here, and then we're just getting some type of lower high for Bitcoin. This is a nice weekly green candle so far. It's brand new. There's still 6 days, 1 hour, or 10 hours left, but it's just some type of resistance at these weekly moving average. Bitcoin not ready to break above. Bitcoin not ready to just make a huge move through the 50-month moving average. Well, then on the daily chart, there's room to downside. What does it look like? We kind of discussed in yesterday's video, but I think as Bitcoin continues to put in green candles and maybe starts approaching overbought, I think it's wise to anticipate retracements and anticipate what those things look like, because they happen all of the time. We get caught up. I think a lot of people do get caught up. We get Bitcoin moves like this, and if we just bring in some context from the swing low of the short-term move to swing high currently, it's a 20% move. And it's easy for us to look at that. It's easy for us to look at, man, crypto really is solving all of these traditional finance issues. Man, the banking system is failing and falling. Crypto solves this. It fixes that. And we see green candles. It's easy to get wrapped up and be like, dude, we're good to go. Like, this is going to keep going. Bull market's starting. But the technicals and what we see on the charts, they don't scream that right now. There are so many things we need to let play out. And right now, the biggest thing for me is the structure forming. Let me let that play out, because, and this is just the way I see the charts, I do this so that I don't become emotional like that. I don't get lost in 3 green daily candles, because these happen, right? We were getting nice green candles back here in January, and we had a nice swing high. But remember, just last week, the last couple of weeks, everybody's freaking out during this move. So everybody freaks out during this move. Everybody celebrates and goes crazy during that move and this current move. And there's too much emotion with all of these moves, but they all happen. They always happen. Huge moves to the upside, huge moves to the downside. So I like to just put it aside and focus on the charts. The structure is what we find on the charts. So, and it almost always plays out, right? No matter what the headlines are, we're getting structure. So Bitcoin right now, to the downside, we obviously have this swing low that we had in November, and it's the bottom trend line touch to the upper trend line touch, a swing high, and we have this nice Fibonacci range to the downside. Support area for Bitcoin. If none of these bullish narratives work out for us this week, we have a 618 right around 19,300, let's just call it, to the 786 right around 17,500. That's a support area for Bitcoin that I would be watching. From where it is right now, we'd be looking at a fall of 18 to 25%. I know it sounds crazy, but just a few days ago, when we're falling, it sounded crazy to say, hey, we're about to get a bounce to the upside of 20%, right? So that's the target to the downside. I can't explain enough how bullish even that is, and we're talking about downside. I can't explain enough, because when we're looking at this target to the downside, it's simply structure if it happened, right? Remember, still have that 10% target to the upside if the bullish narrative plays out. But if it doesn't, this is structure on this chart that we're tracking, right? This upper trend line, lower trend line, this rising channel that Bitcoin is in. But not only is it structure, and if some of you have been watching my videos over the years, this is why this gets me so bullish. Let's go to the monthly chart, and let me just zoom out real quick. If we look at Bitcoin zoomed out on the monthly, and we go from the last swing low in the bear market of 2018 to swing high bull market, this is why it gets me so bullish. It's that 786 line. We anticipated throughout this bear market, Bitcoin getting to this area, falling below. We had our kind of heavier accumulation areas for Bitcoin to fall into. If it did a kind of a more repeat of previous bear markets, 80% plus dip, we only got around 70% plus dip below the 786 line, popped out of it, But this is why that daily chart gets me bullish, is because we've gotten so much separation from the 786 line, this macro bear market low area, so much separation that there's room for downside, right? It could be not a fun event. It could be a red month. It could be not enjoyable, probably a lot of fear, but it's just the fact that there's room to the downside. And it really is setting up on this chart, the daily, if it were to happen. So not saying it's going to happen, but if we zoom out once more on this daily chart, the structure of Bitcoin and what's happening right now, let me get rid of the Fibonacci. Let me get rid of the green mess. But if we actually look at the channel itself, we're looking at like $40,000 breakout target to the upside. Now, that sounds ridiculous. I get it. But at the same time, if we're looking at the same chart, guess what? To the downside, we're falling into our range, that bottoming out range, the capitulation area, the worst case scenario for crypto, the scenario where Bitcoin does exactly what it did in previous bear markets and falls over 80%, right? And bottoms out. This could be that insane environment where all of the people that really are predicting for $10,000 Bitcoin, it somehow happens. I'm not going to sit here and say they're 100% wrong. Nobody knows, everybody. Nobody knows what's going to happen in terms of Bitcoin volatility, especially towards the end of a bear market and the pivot of a bear to bull, especially with macroeconomic things going on. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to happen, but you all know the way I do my TA is anticipate everything, expect nothing, right? So we see what really bad scenarios look like. It's there, it's realistic. We're in a technical analysis pattern. That means there's no emotion in saying that. But just as well, we could break to the upside and we could have kind of a very similar chart of what happened back in 2018 and even back here in 2015 bear market exit, right? So very similar moves of previous bear markets for Bitcoin to do that. But all the while, what we're going to do here and what I'm going to do here on this YouTube channel is just track the structure of it, wait for confirmations. And I think we've done that really well, even on the 6-hour charts, waiting for targets to be hit to the downside. You can see that $19,000 to $20,000 target most recently hit to the downside. Bitcoin took a breather. It was in that oversold environment. And then what happened? We got such a similar move to the previous swing low that we were tracking, right? You can even open up the 6-hour RSI and you just see the similarities. Look at this. Oversold on the 6-hour, oversold on the 6-hour, and we're getting a very similar move, a pop out of that environment, right? So these are all the things I'm going to continue tracking for Bitcoin. Crazy to see Bitcoin making these moves amidst all of the fear that's in the markets right now. So let's continue. I just dropped my energy drink. Let's continue to track this. If Bitcoin keeps moving, we're going to, obviously, I'm going to do another update video. I love when markets are just moving. I can't tell you when markets are just sideways. I want to keep tracking it as a content creator. I'm going to, obviously I do. But when we get these moves, it's so much more fun. It's so much more enjoyable. And even right now, as I'm talking and getting ready to seemingly end the live stream, Bitcoin just pumping on the 6-hour chart, right? It's like just testing $24,000. And I'm gonna wait a minute to see if it hits $24,000. Press the 1 right now if you think Bitcoin. Press the button 1 if you think Bitcoin will break $24,000 as I'm doing this live stream, and hit the like button for me, everybody. I have no idea how many people are in the live stream, but I know we got 282 likes. We got 983 people, 282 likes. What's up with that ratio, people? So I love y'all. I really do. I don't know if you were here in the last bull market when we were doing live streams. We had like over 5,000 people in here. We were cruising. We're not there yet, but those vibes are picking up, and this is what does it. It's Bitcoin really not only making technical moves from a technical analysis perspective, but making narrative moves, right? It's the narrative of finally the bear market is over and we're entering a new era, right? And this is what's happening right now. I'm not confirming the bull market at all right now, right? for anybody wondering, for me, I confirm the bull market when we hit a Fibonacci, we break a Fibonacci to the upside. It's swing high to swing low, and it's far away, right? It really is seemingly far away. It's the green channel to the upside. It's the same thing we did in November 2020, that previous swing high, right? Let's do the fib on this. Swing high to swing low, and it was Bitcoin confirming the bull market doors being broken back in November 2020. But just check this out, how Bitcoin tested it way in advance, but failed. But look at that volatility right there. And so I'm anticipating something similar for 2023. I'm not going to sit here and confirm a bull market because of what we see happening here. I don't think it makes sense from the way I do my technical analysis. That's not confirmation for me. This is more confirmation for me. We start getting a little bit more excited through the halving in 2020, through the monthly closes above the 20-month moving average, and we're still well below the 20-month moving average. So I'm waiting for just a strong pivot in Bitcoin charts before I start doing that, but it's the beginning of it, right? And we're kind of in the similar vibe of previous bear markets, and that's exciting for me as we track these charts. So going back to the daily, I'm obviously, man, Bitcoin's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. It will only break $24,000 when I end this live stream. So if you're a replay viewer and you're watching this moment and Bitcoin does break $24,000, please, you know what to do. Comment and say, dude, Bitcoin just broke $24,000 as you ended the live stream. I'm just reading some comments, everybody. Come on, are you serious? I'm literally just hanging around right now. There we go. Everybody, smash the like, $24,000 as I do this live stream. This means that Bitcoin didn't tease me on this live stream. So, all right, everybody, you know the targets. If you're a replay viewer, hit the timestamps and you'll find those targets because I'll put them in the timestamps. So a lot of upside still in play, a lot of upside momentum still in play. Remember, price range to that upper trend line right around 8% now, 8 to 9%. Just minutes ago, it was 10%. Bitcoin rallying to that area. Want to just note, we start getting a breakout of that upper trend line. We start anticipating the pullback, right? The pullback to the trend line. So I'm getting overly bullish probably as I do this video because I'm just kind of hyped doing live streams with y'all. But if it does break, anticipate a pullback and anticipate whether or not that support holds or fails. If it fails, we could have some downside potential, but we can't track the Fibonacci until we get that first area of resistance. Fibonacci, what I mean by shorter term Fibonacci, is a higher low for Bitcoin. So swing low to current swing high, you see that Fibonacci right now around 21,300 to the 786, 20,500. The support, as you know, on the shorter term continues to move up with Bitcoin. It's the same thing with, when things happen for longer term support that we have at the lower trend line. So it's a short term move right now. It's a 6-hour chart. I can't sit here all day and just track it, although that would kind of be cool if I just sit here all day and watch Bitcoin charts. But this support continues to move up as Bitcoin continues to move up. So assuming, let's assume Bitcoin gets to the upper trend line, that's where resistance is. Well, then we have Bitcoin swing low to that swing high, and you see where the new support is for Bitcoin in the short term, a throwback to 22,100 to 21,000. The more separation, the more move to the upside Bitcoin gets, the more cushion there is to downside, the more room there is for consolidation for Bitcoin. And that's huge as we try and put in the entirety of the bear market low. We're zoomed in on the 6-hour, but every little move counts when we start looking at the weekly. I started this live stream talking about this channel of resistance at the 200-week moving average around 25,300 to the 50-week moving average around 23,300. And look at Bitcoin. As I'm doing this video, the weekly chart just crushing into this entire resistance area. It's difficult for me to stop doing this live stream right now because of this move. It's a very important move on the macro. And I know it kind of gets frustrating to track things like this because everybody's kind of geared in and honed in on the 6-hour chart. But look at this. Let me clean this up a little bit. We're zoomed in on a 6-hour chart, right? We're watching this move. Markets are getting exciting, but it's not even that is what is important. What is important is what's happening here on the weekly. What's really important, and this is for long-term people like myself, and this is why I always zoom out, because the 6-hour obviously is meaningful. These moves are meaningful, but this is what's so meaningful. It's the monthly. What can be frustrating about these zoomed out monthly and weekly charts is there's so much patience required to get the real move we want, which is confirmation of bull markets, right? And 2023 can be a long year in that regard. Just because we're getting this move doesn't mean the bull market is confirmed. This is a 50-month moving average though, and this is crucial, everybody. I don't know where this will close in 18 days and 9 hours, but right now we're seeing the hints of what we want to see. And I say this a lot, Bitcoin's never contested with a 50-month moving average coming out of a bear market. Well, it is right now, and we need to see monthly closes above that area, still 18 days, 9 hours. And we're going to watch and see what happens. Haven't done this in this live stream, and I know I was supposed to end this live stream, but this is just kind of happening organically. The S&P 500 I wanted to just take a look at. So why is this happening? Comment. Let me know what you think. Is this happening because people are just kind of like, hey, Fed is going to slow down. The Fed pivot is coming. Printers are going to get turned on. Is that what markets are doing right now? Is this kind of a little bit of a fake pop, kind of a lower high? This is a daily chart on the S&P 500. Is this kind of a lower high in this downtrend? What's the deal? US dollar currency index has been trickling down. Is this going to rally? Let me know what you think in the comments in the live stream. Also, if you're a replay viewer, let me know, because I'm really curious of sentiment. I'm really curious of just the mentality of markets right now, and really that truly includes all of you. I sit around with my buddy and I'm just like, what do you think? I'm right here wondering what you're thinking, because it really is important. There's been so much fear over the last few days, and now this narrative shift happening. USDC is kind of regaining the dollar peg, and they're talking about the Fed lessening that interest rate rise. Is that playing into what we're seeing happening on these charts? Obviously it is, but the question is, will it last? And a big thing for me, and I'll end with this. A big thing for me is this prediction that I made March 10th last week. I said next week will be a very green week for crypto. Save the tweet. And this is the reason why. Historic oversold data and CPI data on Tuesday is why I think this. Trueflation offering extreme foresight into inflation numbers, I think will bullishly squash many fears moving markets right now. So now, on top of that, we have potential talks of Fed pivot, Fed slowing down, talks of the printer being turned on, while we have potential CPI data on Tuesday. Now, this could be it, everybody. And I'm not trying to sound overly bullish. This could be bad. The numbers could be bad tomorrow. Let's be realistic about that. But if the numbers were good tomorrow, that could be the reason Jerome Powell's just like, hey, listen, those numbers were better than anticipated. We're on course. We're gonna slow down the interest rate hikes. We're on course, and that whole narrative could really start picking up even more steam right now as we're seeing what's happening in the markets already. So that's what I'm watching for tomorrow. But I can't say this enough. Maybe it's terrible. Maybe inflation did not even come down at all when the data is released, in which case you all know what we should anticipate. It's downside, and you all know where we have targets. Short-term target to the downside, swing low to swing high. This channel down here, 21,000, 20,000. And longer term, we have a lower high at this lower trend line. Or I'm sorry, higher low at this lower trend line. So everybody, that's it. I appreciate you. Wanted to do an update. If things get crazy, I will do another live stream. I'm enjoying these live streams when markets are moving, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you're here right now, If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe for me. As you exit and you have an amazing day today, hit the like for me right now. Smash it. And truly, I do. It's a new week. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what you're doing, where you're working, what you have going on, I pray you have an awesome week, a good week. Let's track Bitcoin and see what happens. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.